one day somebody does something unspeakable to someone else, to someone you hardly knew, and you do something about it because you can.
This story comes to us from WLWT NBC News 5. As Covington police begin to investigate their own response into last Thursday's Roebling Bridge protest, they indicated that an incident involving a Cincinnati man who was repeatedly punched by a responding officer will serve as one of the key focuses of their investigation. In body camera video, a Covington police officer could be seen repeatedly punching Brandon Hill in the head while trying to arrest him. As WLWT interviewed him on Saturday, several injuries could be seen on Hill, including bruises across his head. His arm was also in a sling from injuries he says he sustained during the arrest. This all stemmed from a protest Thursday night attended by Hill that was intended to show support for Ayman Soleiman, a Cincinnati Children's Hospital chaplain and Egyptian national who was arrested by ICE earlier this month and now faces potential deportation. Hill says he came out to make his voice heard for Soleiman. He said he was treated unfairly and by an unfair system, and it's not right what they're doing to people, said Hill. Now, Hill is facing 9 different charges after the protest. This includes unlawful assembly, failure to disperse, obstructing a highway, disorderly conduct, obstructing emergency responder violations, criminal mischief, menacing, and resisting arrest. All are misdemeanors or traffic violations, although most charges can still bring jail time and significant fines for anyone convicted of them. However, the most severe charge among those that Hall is now facing is a charge of rioting, which is a Class D felony under Kentucky law. In Kentucky, convictions for Class D felonies carry a minimum of 1 year in prison and can potentially carry up to a maximum of 5 years in prison. A fine of up to $10,000 can also be imposed. Hill called it outrageous that he's being charged with first-degree felony rioting and feels that the officer who punched him was the one who committed wrongdoing during the incident. In body camera video, the barrage of punches on video could be seen lasting for approximately 30 seconds from the officer, most of which came while Hill was pinned to the ground. I saw this on Twitter, if this is the same one. It's just beating him up. But I definitely felt a lot of blows, and I just didn't understand why that after the first few that didn't stop, Hill said. Covington Police Chief Brian Valenti presented body camera footage captured by officers to the public last Friday and said that Hill and others who came out to protest were free to make their voices heard, but under no circumstances had a right to be blocking roadways on the bridge. Valenti also said it was dangerous for police to be responding to a disturbance on the bridge, pointing to a Covington police officer who was killed in 1998 after falling off the Clay Wade Bailey Bridge while in the line of duty. He said, "You heard him advising they need to get off the roadway. This isn't an incident. We weren't on a sidewalk. We weren't in a park. We were on a traveled portion of the roadway. They were obviously attempting to stop vehicles from going across that roadway." Leading up to the arrest, Covington police made earlier calls on the loudspeaker telling protesters who were blocking the Roebling Bridge, am I saying it right? You guys let me know. The Roebling Bridge roadway to move. Said, "Get off the sidewalk or go to jail now." That was the loudspeaker. Hill says that he did not hear the command to disperse over the police sirens and chants being shouted out by protesters. He said, "I did not hear it. There was so much going on. There were so many sirens." Police said the majority of protesters moved to the sidewalk when ordered. But police also said that some, like Hill, did not move. Hill maintains that everything happened so fast on the bridge and that he did not intend to cause trouble for the officers. He said, But if I was given the time to by the authorities, I would have said, no, I don't feel like being arrested today. And I would have made my way onto the sidewalk. But they proceeded very quickly to escalate the situation.
Before all of this happened, there was a peaceful protest and rally on the Cincinnati side of the Roebling Bridge for Imam Ayman Solomon, a local chaplain detained by ICE. And when they began marching across the Roebling in traffic lanes, they found trouble. First, with what appears to be a driver not willing to stop for protesters. And then with police. Listen to what a Covington police commander says over the radio as the marchers crossed the bridge.
They didn't responding support units. If they find anybody failing to disperse, they go to jail.
And that direction appears to play out in a violent way.
However, Valenti pushed back on the assertion that not enough time was given for protesters to disperse, saying that reasonable is subjective and that it was not out of the ordinary for a typical police response by the Covington Police Department. He said, it's hard to say whether there was ample amount of time. I don't exactly know. Ample to me and you might be two different things. Well, what's you and us, the police and us, is always two different things. Meanwhile, Hill says that he did not think he would be arrested when he first decided to come out to protest, and said that he thinks both officers and protesters alike could have easily moved on from the incident without further disruption to their lives if police had handled the situation differently. Mostly the case. Normally, during their Friday press conference addressing the Roebling Bridge arrest, Covington police highlighted a moment when Hill appeared to briefly grab onto an officer's pepper ball gun, causing pellets to fall to the ground as justification for the officer to proceed to arrest Hill.
We showed the arrest video to a former police captain who now trains police on de-escalation techniques in crowd and protest situations.
Well, the first thing I would do if I was evaluating this situation is look at their policy, look at the training, and determine how this officer was trained, what their supervisors' directions were to these officers.
And Formby says he teaches officers to only use strikes with a closed fist if a person poses a threat.
But if the person is only resisting arrest, what we call actively resisting, refusing to give their arms, flailing around, pushing, grabbing, strikes aren't necessarily the primary technique that I would teach or that I would use in that situation.
Hill says he did not realize until afterward that the officer was only holding a pepper ball gun and that the move was instinctual during the chaos of the moment. He said, I don't remember any of that happening. I just remember a person charging at me with a gun, and I just remember trying to get out of the way, Hill said. But on police body cam video, Hill can then be seen running off to the bridge's sidewalk, where he proceeds to run quickly back and forth along the bridge's sidewalk. Several expletives from a male voice can be heard directed toward officers in the video, although it's unclear whether Hill or another man in the crowd is the one saying them. As police get closer to Hill, he can be seen wrapping his arms around the railing of the bridge in an apparent attempt to avoid arrest. That's when an officer then proceeded to punch at Hill in an attempt to pry him off the railing and take him to the ground, which he achieves after about 10 seconds. The officer can then be seen continuing to punch Hill on the ground for approximately an additional 20 seconds. From my perspective, I was following the directions of the officer. I was on the sidewalk. He said to get on the sidewalk after he fired upon me. And that was Hill referring to the officer's pepper ball gun, which was seen on video at one point being fired near Hill's feet. Hill was later arrested and booked into the Kenton County Jail. That officer is on paid administrative duty while his actions are investigated by who? The Covington Police Department, his own. He has not been publicly identified by the department, Hill was arraigned in court on last Friday, and released on a $2,500 bond. He's next due in court today. Um, so we'll see what happens today. But nothing's going to happen to the officer. It's all going to be justified. The police chief's already justified. You know, the police chief kind of skirted the punching. Did you notice that? He talked about the protest while they were blocking the roadway. They were doing this. And if they were doing wrong, I mean, they were doing wrong. I get that. I can only imagine what drivers go through. You're trying to get to work, or you're trying to get home, or you're trying to do dinner, or maybe there's DoorDash or Uber Eats drivers, Uber drivers, what have you, Lyft drivers, and you're like stuck here while these people are standing in the middle of the highway. I get that part, but the cop is just beating the piss out of this guy. You notice how the police chief just kind of skirted past that. Well, let's talk about the protest. Let's talk about the cop punching the guy while he's holding his head. You know, and like I said, two wrongs don't make a right. If they were wrong, they were wrong. But two wrongs also don't make a right. If the cop's punching him while he's holding his head, he's committing assault at that point, I would think, right? Well, no, it's in the line of duty. They're allowed to beat the crap out of you after you resist. You could say, I give up, arrest me. No, I'm going to continue punching you because this is how I get my frustration out. This is how I go home and I don't beat the wife. I beat you. I don't know. Am I wrong? Let me know.